Today on Bridges, we're going to talk about paying it forward with both hands. Welcome to Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter, and I'm glad that you could join us today. Today we're going to talk about paying it forward with both hands, and my guest is JT Olson. And JT, it's so good to have you on Bridges today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So what is, we talk about paying it forward with both hands. Tell us about Both Hands.
Both Hands is an organization that I founded about 8.5 years ago. What I do is I help families raise money for adoptions. And we do it by working on a widow's house. And it's funny, whenever I tell that, whenever people ask me, what do you do? And I explain it that way, there's always that glazed look in their eye. They kind of look at me like, yeah, I don't quite understand all that. And I have found the easiest way to explain it, or the most effective, is to just say how it happened.
Okay, how did it happen?
I was on the board of Bethany Christian Services in Nashville, and one year my job was to do the fundraiser, and I chose to do a golf fundraiser. You know, it's where you mail letters out to people and you say, would you sponsor me while I golf? Well, I did what I was supposed to do, sent my letters out, and I had a buddy who I was in a Bible study with, Bill Iverson, sends my letter back to me, but he doesn't include a check. He just scribbles on my letter. He says, JT, if you told me you were working on a widow's house, I might sponsor you. But you're just golfing. Nice cause, but not my money.
Oh.
And it hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the same time.
It hurt my feelings too,
well,
yeah.
Well, but at the same time, I thought, that's a pretty good idea, you know, and I called him a couple days later and we talked about it and laughed about it, but that idea just never left me. Whenever I saw a fundraiser, I always kept asking myself, if they were working on a widow's house, would that be more compelling? Would it be more effective? I just couldn't put it together. I even met with people trying to figure out, what's all this look like? I just knew there was something there, because God put it on my heart. Well, 2 or 3 years after that, I'm in church running into a good friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in a couple months. I said, what's up? And he said, I'm adopting 4 kids from Moldova. And I said, what happened? And he already had 3 children of his own. And I said, what went on? He said, well, I went on a mission to Moldova with Sweet Sleep. We delivered beds to orphanages. And I fell in love with this boy, George, 11-year-old boy, and throughout the week we became inseparable, and we started the adoption process when we got back. He said, I found out in that process that he's got 3 siblings. And he looked at me and he said, and we're not going to break up as siblings. Well, that resonated with me, because when I was 12 years old, lived on a farm in northeastern Iowa, there was 5 of us kids. And I remember one weekend in particular in March, my mom and dad left to celebrate their 16th wedding anniversary. And us kids were kind of farmed out to different places, you know.
Sure.
And I remember Saturday night we were being brought home because mom and dad were coming home. And I'd played all day in the barn. I was pretty dirty, so I went down into the basement of our house, and my other brother, he went upstairs. But I remember sitting in the basement on this chair, bending over, unlacing my boots, and my brother came down the stairs. I looked up at him and I said, are Mom and Dad home? And he looked at me and he said, Mom and Dad are dead.
Mom and Dad are dead?
Yeah. And I said, what? He said, Mom and Dad are dead. They were killed in a car accident an hour ago. And I remember hitting the floor. I remember wailing like any 12-year-old would wail. And I remember thinking about my dad and my mom. And I mean, I know what it's like to be an orphan. I know what it's like to wonder who's going to take care of us. I know what it's like to wake up the next morning. And for the first 30 seconds, you think it was a dream. And then for the next 15 seconds, you struggle with everything you got to make sure it's a dream. And you can't. And you just realize, I'm never going to see Mom and Dad again. And I know what that's like.
Yeah.
But I also know what it's like to be rescued. Because 3 months before this accident, my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister and her husband, they changed their wills so that if anything would happen to one couple, the other couple would take them.
3 months before that horrific accident?
Yeah. My aunt and uncle had 3 children of their own.
Yeah.
They took all 5 of us in.
Didn't separate the siblings.
So when Don looks at me and he says, we're not going to break up the siblings, I'm the just right guy to say that to. Because I'm not going to sit there and say, are you sure? You know what I mean? He said that to me. My immediate thought, I'll never forget it, with such clarity, and that was, here's a man who's trusting God in a way that I envy.
Yeah.
I want to have that kind of faith. And I just looked at Don and I said, by that time we've adopted, I knew it was going to be expensive. I said, how much is it going to cost? He said, about $65,000.
How much?
$65,000.
$65,000.
And I said, yeah. I said, Don, you got any idea how you're going to raise that money? And that deer in the headlights look came on. He said, no. And I said, I think I got an idea. So long story short, Don and I got together, put together a plan. We recruited about 13, 14 guys. We all mailed letters out to everyone we knew saying, would you sponsor me for the day while I work in this widow's house? All the money that we raise is going to go towards the cost of adopting these 4 kids from Moldova. I found a widow in Nashville who needed help. We got all the supplies donated by local merchants or individuals. We didn't spend any money. I mean, we spent money on stamps, but that's it.
Yeah.
And we spent the day working on Miss Lucille's house. And it was the most fun day, the most awesome day. And when it was over, we'd raised over $70,000.
In one day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I felt I was standing on holy ground.
You were.
It was just, it was amazing.
You were.
I mean, I was expecting 10 or 15, but over 70. And then about 6 months later, another friend of mine came up to me and said, you know, I heard what you did with Don, would you help me? And I said, sure, let's do it again. and it was so great. We had about 54 people on that house, and we put a new roof on our house. I remember standing on that roof and looking out at the people, the transformation that was happening in their yard. And I remember looking at the streets, and there was 19 cars in the streets. And that reminded me of a time at the farm where I was about a month after the accident. My 2 little sisters had moved to Milwaukee to be with my aunt and uncle right away. Us 3 boys were in junior high and high school. We stayed on the farm to help my dad's brother, who also farmed at the farm, with chores. So a month after the accident, I'm getting off the school bus on the farm. And our school bus stops about a half mile from the house on a hill. You can see a lot of our farm. I get off the bus this beautiful day, and there's all our neighbors in our fields with their tractors and their plows. They're planting our crops, and it was awesome. And when I sat in that house, I looked at those 19 cars and those 54 people. I thought, this is awesome. This is what we do.
People coming together.
Yeah.
People coming together.
Yeah.
And that's what Both Hands is.
Both Hands does that.
People coming together
To serve
help,
a widow and to bring
serve
money
a widow.
so an orphan gets adopted.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're right. When you give the first explanation, it's really hard to track with all of that. So you work on a widow's house to raise money to adopt children, but when you explain the story, it all comes together. And that has to have changed so many lives.
Yeah, we've done some work now. We've done 707 projects in 42 states.
707 projects.
741 widows have been blessed, and 809 kids are no longer orphans.
809 kids, my goodness, have moms and dads and families and are loved. We've got to take a break. We want you to stay with us. When we come back, you're going to hear more about Both Hands and how more children are finding families.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
If you're just joining us today on Bridges, my guest is J.T. Olson, and we're talking about paying it forward with both hands. And right now we're going to take a look into J.T.'s book, The Orphan, the Widow, and Me. And J.T., I have just enjoyed talking with you to think about over 700 widows being helped and orphans being placed in families, just the goodness of God, and it all coming together through both hands.
That's living.
Yeah, it is living.
I mean, it's
yes,
really.
It is living.
I fear whenever we can help a family raise $5, $10, $15, or $20,000 that goes towards the cost of the adoption.
Yeah.
That's living.
Yeah, because you know, that's the first thing that I hear people say when it comes to adopting is just the cost. Like the family
Yes.
has to get past the cost option. Like the heart is willing, they want to do it, but how do you find money to do all of that?
Yes.
And that God gave you that idea.
Yeah, he did, and a lot of people, you know, kind of supported me in that Bill
Yes.
Iverson's idea, and
Yes.
but I got a great group of friends and board of directors that have said, yeah, we can do this.
I think about, you know, what you said in the last segment. Is it Bill Iverson?
Yeah.
Thank God for him.
Thank God
that
for Bill.
that he said what he said, and that it spurred something else. So sometimes the things that hurt our feelings can really be wonderful things
Yes.
if we'll just go the distance with it.
Yes.
And you've written this book, The Orphan, the Widow, and Me. So tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, you know, whenever I tell the story of both hands, and the whole story, people come up to me afterwards and they say, you should write a book. So we did, you know, and it's really a story of my life and kind of that transition when we moved from, you know, the farm to a very wealthy suburb of Milwaukee. That was a bit of a transition for a farm kid.
I would think so.
And kind of the lost years in the last couple of years in high school and the first year in college, and talks about my transition, just a great opportunity I fell into when I was a college student, a summer sales program with the Southwestern Company. It just made all the difference in the world to me, and I ended up being there for 23 years.
Wow.
But and then some of the transition after I left Southwestern, talking about the 10 years I had a recruiting company, but it just wasn't fulfilling me. But the last couple of years I had that is when we did these 2 Both Hands projects. And I remember at the end of that second project, my wife and I went out to eat dinner, and we were sitting there talking about it, and I was talking about the things we could do and what would happen and how cool it was. And she looked at me and she said, you are positively aglow. And I said, yeah, I think this fires me up. This is what I was supposed to do. And you know what's interesting? Someone just pointed this out to me last week. They said, you were 12 years old when you lost your parents, 52 when you started Both Hands. That's 40 years later. And I thought, wow, 40 years, that's got some significance there.
Yeah.
God can take stories, God can take pain, God can take hard times, and he can turn them into joy.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done with Both Hands, and that's what this book is about. I hope it inspires people. I hope it inspires people to do something with their life.
Yeah.
I hope it inspires them to live a life of impact, seeking impacts instead of seeking ease.
Yeah. Well, you know, because that's kind of, that's kind of the thing. I think that we wrongly or mistakenly believe that a life of convenience and ease and things, that would be very fulfilling. And yet, what I hear you saying is that even though, you did some great things and you had some great opportunities and you did those things, you still were left at the end of the day feeling like there's got to be something else.
That's exactly right. And I was 52 when I started Both Hands. And it's literally like, for me, it was like God was saying, JT, this is what it's all been about. Now just tee it up and swing. Don't worry, just swing.
Yeah. And when you say that, you mean like kind of swing by faith. Like just,
yes.
Because God doesn't always give us every little next step. That's the whole thing. We think that sometimes. But it's that next swing, it's that next right thing. And when I hear you say 12 at losing your parents and all of that pain and just what trauma for you, and for your other 4 siblings to have to go through. And that it's 40 years later that you hit upon what's next, like what God had for you, I would hope would leave people with hope and inspiration. Because sometimes you think, well, I'm 52, or, well, it's been 40 years, or it's been 10 years, and it's just, you're saying, like, it's never too late to find what God called you to do.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And I think you have to be open to it. You have to be willing to put your faith in God.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of faith in the fact that if we pursued serving widows and orphans, God would honor that.
Yeah.
And he's honored that. We've raised $7.7 million for families to use for adoptions.
$7.7 million.
And here's the thing. We haven't taken a dime out for our operations. And I set it up that way purposely at the very beginning. I said, you know what? All the money is going to go towards the families, and we're just going to raise our funds on the side. And God, we haven't missed any paychecks. And God has honored that, and God has provided. And it's just amazing. I've never been more out on a limb, but never felt more secure.
Amen. Amen, because God's got you. God's got you. So the name of the book is The Orphan, the Widow, and Me, and it's by J.T. Olson, and it's about really your journey
Yes.
in life and the things that you've learned. And I'm struck by the number of years from when you lost both of your parents along with your 4 siblings, that 40 years passing. And, you know, I think sometimes also, JT, not only do we want a life of ease, we want it to be quick. Like, we think that we pray and the answer, you know what I'm saying? Like, we'll just know what's next like that. And yet, what I see in your life and in this book is that it really is a journey. It was a way of taking that pain and God bringing you to what you could be passionate about.
Yeah. And I think we don't always know it.
No.
I got one of my board members, he's made this statement that if you look at a tapestry, most of the time, our life is a tapestry, but we only get to see the back side of it. And if you see the back side of a tapestry, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
You see a little bit of a fog, a little bit of blur, but it's when you turn it around and you're struck by the wonder of it all and go, wow.
Yeah. And you know, I know when I look at it, how did it all come together? And when you look at the back side of a tapestry, it is also a bunch of knots and a bunch of seemingly loose ends. Like, none of it looks attractive. It just looks like, So you may be looking at your life and it may be the back side of a tapestry. We don't always see the big picture of what God is doing. And I know in our next segment, we're going to have the Holland family come and kind of tell me, you know, how did you meet them?
Well, I met them through some friends at church at Woodmont Hills Church of Christ, and they heard about Both Hands through some, I'm not sure who told them about it, but that's when I first started working with them, and it was just, they did a great job. And what's cool about this, and you'll see this with the Hollands, it's cool with every family, is they get their friends around them. And so they recruit a team of 10, 15, 20 friends. They all mail letters out. But those friends have a chance to be part of that child's legacy.
Yes.
And those friends on that team were part of Liberty's legacy. And they've always got a stake in that child's life.
Right.
And the Hollands, they got an army supporting them.
Yeah, it's a way for people to participate and support an orphan finding a family by helping a widow. It's just a win-win, which is such a God thing. It has been so nice to meet you and to talk with you today. Thank you so much for coming. Coming up next, you'll get to meet the Hollands and their story of adoption.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
Prayer changes things. If you need prayer, write to the address on the screen. Call 615-754-0039 or email prayer@ctntv.org.
Log on to www.ctntv.org, where you can make a prayer request, view our program guide, see who's on Bridges, or even watch one of Monica's latest teachings. Log on to www.ctntv.org.
If you're just joining us, we've been talking today about paying it forward with both hands. And right now we're going to meet the Holland family and find out their journey to adoption and how they connected with both hands. And it's good to have you with us today.
It's great to be
We're
here.
happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you, Megan. And so you brought the whole family.
We did.
And so, Hayes, if you would, tell me a little bit, if you would, about how you got connected with both hands.
Sure. Well, our adoption story really started before we even had kids. We'd really talked about that quite a bit. We knew that was something we were feeling called to do and eventually would like to do.
Okay.
And we really started down the road of adoption in 2012. We started our home study and got all that taken care of. And for the sake of transparency, I got extreme cold feet, especially related to money.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. But how do you stop what you feel like is a calling from God, and at the same time you got this big financial burden that was going on?
And yet, that so many people, that's the first thing that they say is they would love to adopt a child or another child, and yet there's this huge cost. How were you feeling about that, Megan?
Strangely enough, I'm kind of the budgeting nerd in our family, and I felt like the Lord would provide. But we're a team, and so we put our adoption on hold and ended up kind of waiting a little while. But in the meantime, God was moving and He was working on both of our hearts. And so we picked back up our home study around 2013. And while we were walking that journey, 3 different people talked to us about both hands. The final person being Ty Osmond and JT, and both hands work out of the Salmon Builder's office, and we had just happened to be there for a meeting. And I told Hayes that we really needed to look into it, and it was a huge blessing.
Huge blessing.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you, you both had a desire to do this, and yet that money thing came up.
Right.
So you stepped back, because as a
Right.
married couple, you wanted to be in agreement, you pray, and then if
Right.
3 different people mention to you both hands, you kind of think,
It
maybe
was a
this
big
is
deal.
God.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe this is God talking to
Yeah.
our family. So if you would, because I know that you've got all 4 of your kids here, introduce us to your kids if you would, Hayes.
Sure.
Tell us who's back there.
This is Levi. He's
Hi,
11.
Levi.
And then we've got the middle child over here. His name is Lucas. He's 9. And then Logan right behind me is 7. And then this is Liberty, and she just turned 2.
Amazing. Beautiful family that God has
Thank you.
given you.
We are really blessed.
Beautiful family. So let's hand the microphone and hold that right up to your mouth and tell us, what were you thinking? Did you know that your mom and dad were thinking about adopting? What were your thoughts?
I mean, when I was younger, and so I was like a little kid. I didn't know half the stuff that was going on. And so sometimes I would like hear them over talking about like, hey, do we seriously want to do this? Do we want to adopt or something like that? Like just like those little conversations at dinner that we would just overhear.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is when we're kids. We overhear stuff. If you'll hand the microphone to your brother. So are you guys bringing the kids in intentionally in your conversations?
We
to adopt?
did. Well, we felt like they were old enough to be a part of the conversation. I mean, ultimately, that was our decision, but we wanted them to know what was happening and what was going on, and to be preparing them for things that would be difficult and things that would be challenging. So
Yeah.
They had been asking specifically for a sister for some time too.
Yeah, with 3 boys.
right.
So were you excited about the adoption taking place? Hold the microphone right up there and tell us.
Yes, I was.
That's wonderful. You want to hand that to your brother? And how about you? Were you excited and on board with the journey?
I was really excited because we got 3 boys, and sometimes they can be annoying. And it would be nice to have a sister
Yes.
that just have a sister
Yes.
because we have so many boys.
Yeah,
And
so you have a beautiful sister, Liberty, that you got. So now Hayes, you're connected with both hands. What happens from there? I understand there's like a project day and that sort of thing. What happens?
Yes, so we, through my parents' church, they had a widow at their church, and that's what Both Hands does, is pair an adoptive family with a widow and widow need, and then you do a project on her home, and all the funds that you raise go to raise money towards your adoption. So got connected with her. We had our project day. That was on our wedding anniversary.
It was.
So it was May 17th, was that 2014?
It was 10 years, right.
Yeah, it was our 10-year anniversary.
10-year anniversary.
Yeah, so we went and
It was
got
a special day.
all of our family and closest friends together, and went and worked on her house, and it was an awesome day.
Yeah. Well,
So-
from your perspective, Megan, what was Project Day like?
The project day was outstanding. It was a lot of work leading up to that day, and then our team that we had gathered, so our team, including ourselves, we were the ones who sent out sponsorship letters. So all of the money that was sponsored went towards Liberty's adoption, and then all of the paint, anything that we needed in order to work on our widow's home was donated by local companies, and we had to the boys and I would go out and we would ask people to help donate towards our project. But that day, we couldn't even believe when we got in the car that night how much had been done to Lena's home. And even when we weren't watching, things that we hadn't even planned that day, people would run to Home Depot and decide they wanted to put a new fan over her oven or stove. I mean, things that we hadn't even planned happened that day. So it was an
Furniture,
amazing day.
Tables, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
showed up.
Yeah. So what was it like for you? Because there's a lot of pre-planning, Project Day, sponsors. What was it like for you that day to see so many people show up and to see them want to do over and above?
It was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming. I remember we were being interviewed at the end of our video, and just how overcome with emotion. I really became just seeing what a support system she already had, and that group of people, how we were already really close, and it just really built our closeness.
Because she's like already like had an immediate family, but extended family.
She did. And then the relationship that we built with the widow that day, because we did not know Lena prior to meeting her, and we actually were with her over Christmas. She loves Liberty, and she loves our boys, and our boys love to go and visit her. Even then, that connection, we not only gained a daughter, we gained, another family member through Lena.
Which is amazing.
It was so wonderful and so special.
Yeah.
So.
And we're going to get to meet Lena by way of video here in just a moment, but just how has adoption changed your family, now adding a beautiful girl to your family of all boys?
I don't even know the right words to explain how it's changed. Family and just perspective on life, and culture and acceptance. And I forget a lot of the times that we're not the same color.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really have to remind myself, oh wow, I'm not. We do look differently if somebody else to look at us, but that doesn't matter. We are definitely family.
Yes. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for coming out.
Absolutely.
And Liberty's taking a nap, and that is totally okay. We want you to meet Lena and what she has to say about Project Day.
I appreciate everything. You don't know it. If they just come in and dust it, I appreciate that. I appreciate anything anybody do for me, because they don't have to. Nobody have to do anything for you, And I appreciate it, I really do. I would like to say thank them, and may God bless them in every way, and I hope and pray that they get their little baby and raise that baby and be good people like they are, because they are precious.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
When I truly turned my heart to the Lord, He took every sin I ever did away from me.
Amen.
He took all the bad things I did. He took away everything that I felt like I felt short.
God is so good. God healed me, and doctors told me that disease was something that could never be cured. It can be controlled.
The start is what stops most people. It's no good to have a big dream if you're not putting yourself in motion to go after that.
Is that butterfly, that excitement of the new relationship, once that goes away, what you're left with, is that something that you're okay with?
And once they start buying into the truth about themselves, then they can begin to change, that process of change in their life.
If you would like to contact WHTN, you can write to the address on the screen or call us at 615-754-0039 or visit us on the web at www.ctntv.org.